But most importantly, our eyes do not defy us. Our eyes do not lie to us. We see, as the rest of the world has seen, have women are being violently pulled out of their cars and assaulted in front of the American people and in front of the eyes of the world. How a woman was shot in the face.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is facing a formal reckoning that she has dismissed as a game. Representative Robin Kelly has introduced 3 articles of impeachment against the secretary. These articles are not a political stunt. They are a response to a documented reign of terror that has touched Chicago, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Charlotte, and Durham. They are a response to the deaths of American citizens and the systematic violation of the United States Constitution. This is a prosecutorial examination of the facts. We will look at the obstruction of Congress.
This morning, I introduced articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I am proud to have the support of almost 70 members of Congress already from all across the country. Secretary Noem has brought her reign of terror to the Chicagoland area, LA, New Orleans, Charlotte, Durham, and communities north to south to east to west. You'll hear from some of those communities, Minnesota and Portland. She needs to be held accountable for her actions.
We will look at the violation of public trust. We will look at the self-dealing. This script follows the evidence from the streets of Chicago to the windowless cells at the northern border. It is time to hold the executive branch accountable to the law. Secretary Kristi Noem claims that her agency is acting to protect the American public and secure the nation. She claims her agents are removing the most dangerous elements from our communities. That is a lie. It is a lie told to justify the use of militarized force against civilians. It is a lie told to excuse the deaths of people in federal custody. It is a lie told to hide a $200 million propaganda campaign designed to turn law enforcement into a political weapon. The lie is defined by the specific claims made regarding Operation Midway Blitz.
She claims she's taking murderers and rapists off our streets, but none of the 614 people arrested during Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago have been charged or convicted of murder or rape.
Secretary Noem claims she is taking murderers and rapists off our streets. She uses this language to characterize the work of the Department of Homeland Security under her leadership. She presents these operations as essential for public safety. This claim has been directly refuted by Representative Robin Kelly of Illinois. Representative Kelly represents the district where these raids occurred. She has access to the data. She has spoken to the victims. The authority in this matter is the secretary herself, who has used her platform to project an image of law and order that does not exist in reality. The forensic evidence from the sources proves that the secretary's claims are false. During Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, federal agents arrested 614 people. Representative Kelly reports that out of those 614 people, not a single one has been charged with murder. Not a single one has been convicted of murder. Furthermore, none of the 614 people arrested in that operation have been charged or convicted of rape. The evidence shows that federal agents used Black Hawk helicopters to rappel onto an apartment building in the South Shore of Chicago. They burst through doors in the middle of the night. They dragged people out of their beds.
Federal agents repelled from Black Hawk helicopters and burst through an apartment in the South Shore of Chicago. That was in my district. They dragged people, U.S. citizens and immigrants alike, out of bed in the middle of the night.
These people were United States citizens and immigrants. They were subjected to militarized force based on a claim of criminality that the agency's own arrest records do not support. The evidence of lethal force and neglect is staggering. In the year 2025, 32 people died while in the custody of the Department of Homeland Security. Already in the first part of 2026, 4 more people have died. These are not just numbers. Last week, ICE agents murdered Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis. The very next day, federal agents shot 2 people in East Portland.
Last week, ICE murdered Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis. The very next day, federal agents shot 2 people in East Portland in my district. These are not isolated events. This is part of a pattern of abuse.
This happened in the district of Representative Maxine Dexter. There are widespread reports of sexual abuse, medical neglect, and inhumane conditions. Our eyes do not lie. We have seen footage of women being violently pulled out of cars and assaulted. We have seen a woman shot in the face as the world watched on television. The evidence also shows that these violations extend to the most vulnerable. Representative Adriano Espaillat traveled to Monterrey, Mexico. There, he met 4 children. These were not foreign nationals. These were U.S.-born children. They were American citizens. They were sent to Mexico with their parents. One of these young girls has a chronic cancer condition in her brain. She requires immediate medical attention in a hospital in Houston, Texas. She was removed from her country and her care by Noem's agents.
Cuffed, detained, and in some cases arrested and deported. I went to Monterrey, Mexico, where I met with 4 children, U.S.-born children, American citizens, that were sent to Mexico with their parents, including a young girl with a chronic cancer condition in her brain that needed immediate medical attention in a hospital in Houston, Texas.
In another instance, 4 U.S. citizen children from Representative Dexter's district were detained in a windowless cell at the border near Canada for weeks. This is what the evidence proves. It proves a system that does not distinguish between criminals and citizens. It proves a system that ignores medical necessity. The evidence of self-dealing is found in the agency's budget. Secretary Noem used $200 million of taxpayer money to fund an advertising campaign for ICE recruitment. She created a video that turned the South Shore raid into a movie trailer. While this propaganda was being produced, she steered a federal contract to a new firm run by a personal friend. This was done through emergency contracts. This occurred while her agents were shooting citizens and leaving detainees in rooms with broken toilets. The power and control analysis reveals that the Department of Homeland Security has been turned into a weapon of political revenge. Representative Nydia Velázquez has served in New York for over 30 years. She has seen many presidents. She states she has never seen an administration use federal agencies to explicitly punish cities because of how they voted. This is the use of raw executive power to settle political scores. In New York, ICE is no longer operating as a law enforcement agency. It is a rogue operation. Masked agents are abducting high school students from their neighborhoods. They are snatching fathers and mothers outside of immigration courts during routine checks. They are turning places of justice into traps. The control is maintained through the denial of oversight. Representative Kelly was denied access to the ICE facility in Broadview. She followed the secretary's own 7-day notice requirement, yet she was still barred. Representative Velázquez and Representative Espaillat were denied entry to an ICE building at 26 Federal Plaza. They had to go to court to get a favorable decision to exercise their oversight powers. Even after the court ruled, Secretary Noem implemented a new 7-day notice rule. This was done so the agency could prepare and hide the truth. When representatives finally got inside, they found agents mopping floors and cleaning up. They found 30 men in a room with 2 toilets, one of which was broken. They found men and women in cells where they could see each other with no confidentiality. This is how power is used to hide inhumane conditions from the public. The strongest defense argument for Secretary Noem is that these actions are necessary for national security and that the impeachment process is silly. She claims that her agents are the best of the best. She argues that the administration is simply doing what is necessary to protect the border and the interior of the country. This defense is dismantled by the law and the specific evidence of her agency's failures. An operation that arrests 614 people and finds 0 murderers or rapists is not a national security success. It is a failure of intelligence and a violation of civil rights. A system that allows 36 people to die in custody in a little over a year is not the best of the best. It is a system of neglect. The claim that impeachment is silly is dismantled by the reality of the victims. Impeachment is not silly to the family of Renee Nicole Good, who was murdered by federal agents. It is not silly to the American child with brain cancer who was deported to Mexico and denied access to her doctors in Houston. It is not silly to the U.S. citizens who were dragged out of their beds in the middle of the night. Noem's dismissive attitude toward the Constitution and the oversight powers of Congress shows that she does not take her job seriously. The law does not allow for a lawless charade masked as law enforcement. Legal education in plain English clarifies why these articles were filed. The United States Constitution gives Congress the power of oversight. This is a fundamental check on executive power. When a secretary denies members of Congress access to federal facilities, she is obstructing the law. This is Article 1, obstruction of Congress. The Secretary also has a legal duty to protect the public trust. When an agency carries out warrantless arrests and uses violent force against citizens without due process, that trust is shattered. This is Article 2, violation of public trust. Finally, a public official cannot use their office for personal or political gain. Steering contracts to friends and using $200 million for propaganda constitutes self-dealing. This is Article 3, self-dealing. The law requires that agents follow specific procedures. It requires warrants. It requires due process. It requires humane conditions for those in custody. The evidence shows these legal standards are being ignored. Representative Espaillat noted that this behavior is what is seen in aggressive dictatorships. In a democracy, the law is supposed to be a shield for the citizen. Under Noem, it has been turned into a sword for the state. The agents are described as screaming, cursing, and smashing windows. This is not the behavior of a disciplined legal force. It is the behavior of individuals who believe they are above the law. The professional judgment on Secretary Noem's fitness for office is that she has betrayed her oath. Her character was revealed long before she took this office. Representative Velasquez notes that when Noem bragged about shooting her own dog, she was showing the world how she would run a government agency. She has shown a total lack of empathy and a disregard for life. When Renee Nicole Good was killed, Noem did not call for an investigation. She did not express regret. Instead, she went on national television and smeared a dead American citizen as a domestic terrorist. This is a failure of leadership. This is a failure of character. Representative Maxine Dexter, a physician and a mother, states that she cannot sleep unless she does everything possible to remove Kristi Noem from office. This is the professional judgment of a medical expert who sees the physical and psychological toll of these policies. Representative Nydia Velasquez, with 3 decades of experience, judges the agency to be completely out of control. These are not partisan attacks. These are the conclusions of experienced legislators who have witnessed the breakdown of professional standards within the Department of Homeland Security. The expert authority stack for this case is composed of individuals with direct knowledge of the violations. Representative Robin Kelly of Illinois provides the authority on the failures of Operation Midway Blitz and the denial of access to facilities in her district. Representative Adriano Espaillat, the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, provides the authority on the international human rights violations and the legal battles for oversight. Representative Maxine Dexter of Oregon, a physician, provides the authority on the medical neglect and the specific cases of violence in the Pacific Northwest. Representative Nydia Velasquez of New York provides the authority on the long-term history of federal law enforcement and the unprecedented nature of this administration's use of agencies for political revenge. These are the voices of authority who are documenting the Wild West environment created by the Secretary. Institutional accountability has been systematically undermined. The Department of Homeland Security under Noem has treated the Constitution like a suggestion. The courts have tried to intervene, but the Secretary has used administrative tricks to bypass judicial orders. The internal mechanisms that are supposed to investigate agent misconduct have been silenced. Instead of accountability, there is a $200 million recruitment campaign designed to find people who are willing to participate in a lawless charade. The agency has positioned itself above the law, ignoring the very institutions that are meant to provide checks and balances. When the institutions of the executive branch fail to hold themselves accountable, the responsibility falls to Congress. The filing of these articles of impeachment is the institutional response to a secretary who refuses to follow the law. The failure of the DOJ and other enforcement bodies to rein in these rogue operations has left the American people vulnerable to their own government. The mask-wearing agents abducting students and the Black Hawk helicopters over neighborhoods are the physical manifestations of this accountability failure. The procedural consequences are now in motion. Representative Robin Kelly has introduced the articles. This starts a formal process in the House of Representatives. There is no promise of a specific outcome, but there is the certainty of a record. The Secretary is now being watched by Congress and the American people. The procedure is intended to remove her from office and end the misuse of the Department of Homeland Security. This is the only path left to protect communities from unaccountable power. The consequences for the Secretary will be determined by the evidence of her obstruction, her violation of the public trust, and her self-dealing. There is no hope offered in these sources, only a commitment to duty. Representative Dexter stated that protecting communities is not optional, it is a duty. The procedural consequence of these actions is a move toward removal. The goal is to stop the shootings, stop the illegal detentions of children, and restore the rule of law. The articles of impeachment are the first step in that legal process. The evidence has been presented. The law has been cited. Now the procedural consequences must follow. Kristi Noem's leadership of the Department of Homeland Security has resulted in the death of 36 people in custody. It has resulted in the shooting of citizens on American streets. It has resulted in the illegal detention of American children. It has resulted in the misuse of $200 million. These are the facts that the articles of impeachment lay out. This is not a movie, and it is not a show. It is real life, and real people are being hurt. The accountability process has begun because the American people are watching, and they do not like what they are seeing. The process will continue until the law is upheld and the Secretary is held responsible for her actions. The Department of Homeland Security was created to protect the nation. Under Secretary Noem, the evidence shows it has been turned into a weapon of revenge. It has become a rogue operation that ignores the courts and Congress. The impeachment process is the constitutional remedy for this level of failure. Representative Kelly and her colleagues have moved to exercise their oversight powers because the Secretary has proven she will not follow the law on her own. The evidence of 614 arrests with 0 murder charges stands as a permanent indictment of her claims. The death of Renee Nicole Good stands as a permanent indictment of her tactics. The deportation of a child with brain cancer stands as a permanent indictment of her humanity. These facts are the foundation of the case for her removal. The law is clear. The evidence is documented. The accountability is necessary. The Secretary can call this process silly, but the articles of impeachment are now a matter of historical and legal record. They describe a pattern of behavior that is incompatible with the oath of office. They describe a secretary who has abandoned the principles of due process in favor of a lawless charade. The procedures of the House and the Senate will now dictate the next steps. This is how the system is designed to work when an official believes they are above the law. The reign of terror, as described by Representative Kelly, has a legal ending. That ending is written in the articles of impeachment. The evidence from Minneapolis to Portland and from Chicago to New York shows a consistent pattern of abuse. It shows an agency that has forgotten its purpose and a secretary who has forgotten her duty. The $200 million propaganda campaign cannot hide the reality of the broken toilets and the windowless cells. It cannot hide the reality of the families who are forever torn apart. The law requires that these actions have consequences. The articles of impeachment are those consequences. This is the prosecutorial case against Kristi Noem. It is a case built on the testimony of members of Congress and the physical evidence of her agency's actions. It is a case built on the blood of American citizens and the violation of the Constitution. The process is underway. The evidence is undeniable. The law is the only standard that matters. This script has been a report on the facts and the legal steps being taken to address them. The accountability of the executive branch is the only way to ensure that the Wild West is replaced by the rule of law. Secretary Noem has betrayed her oath, the Constitution, and the American people. These are the words of Representative Nydia Velázquez, who has seen more than 3 decades of governance. They are backed by the actions of an agency that abducts students and shoots women in the face. The institutional failures are deep, but the procedural response has begun. The 3 articles of impeachment are the mechanism of that response. Obstruction of Congress, violation of the public trust, self-dealing. These are the charges. The evidence supports them. The law demands a trial. The accountability of Kristi Noem is now a matter for the United States Congress. The American people are watching this process. They are watching to see if the law still applies to those in power. They are watching to see if the deaths of their fellow citizens will be answered with justice. The articles of impeachment are the beginning of that answer. There is no more room for movie trailers or propaganda. There is only room for the truth as documented in these reports and these testimonies. The case is closed. The process moves forward. This is the law. This is the evidence. This is the accountability.